Time to start. I don't hear anything.
Good morning. I want to welcome everybody on behalf of the board of the Latino Coalition for this dynamic event that we're going to have today. My name is Manny Rosales, and I'm the secretary of the board, director of the International Trade Committee, and also the DC director. And Hector has bestowed on me the honorable title as the chair of this legislative conference. So thank you, Hector. I just want to thank our special partners, our corporate partners who have helped us in supporting this effort, our chambers of commerce partners that are here from all over the country, and especially our staff, Prisma and Tracy, who have done a tremendous job of putting this thing together. Give them a big hand. So what do we expect today? It's going to be dynamic, it's going to be informative, and it's going to be focused on entrepreneurship and the growth in the Hispanic community. The issues of the economy, the issues of infrastructure, tax reform, and the workforce development are going to be main focuses. We are here to educate and inform, and at the same time to network, have a wonderful time. And we are blessed that we have today with us the President of the United States. That's a great accomplishment for our organization. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Cici Rojas, who is going to come up and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
If I could have everyone please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
And now it gives me the pleasure to introduce our chairman, a leader that I've known for many years. And he gave me the number, but I don't want to repeat it. Someone who is a real fighter for the Latino community and a real big advocate for the business community. I want to congratulate him on his appearance today on Fox and Friends. I've gotten calls from all over the country saying, wow, you guys are really hitting it out of the ballpark. So without further ado, our leader, a champion for small business, Hector Barreto.
Muchas gracias, Manny. Bienvenidos a todos, especialmente mis amigos de Mexico. I want to welcome our friends that are here from Mexico as well. Welcome to the Latino Coalition Legislative Summit. Many of you were with us last year when we were right here in the same hotel, and we had the Vice President of the United States and the SBA Administrator, and we had a phenomenal day. It was a very exciting day, and I tell you, I think we're going to break records today. So I appreciate all of you being here and being part of for us is a historic event. Now, I know many of you for many years. This is familia. And I know that if we didn't do anything today, if we were just networking, we would have a great day. And you're going to have a lot of opportunity for networking, but you're also going to be meeting with some incredible individuals, incredible leaders from all around the country and from all different kinds of organizations, nonprofits, chambers, corporate leaders, government leaders, many, many folks. So we've packed a lot into a short period of time, and we're very, very happy that you could be part of this. You know, Latino Coalition, I get asked this a lot, how long have you guys been doing this? And the true answer is we've been doing this for over 23 years. Now, Manny and I weren't here at the very beginning, but we were busy doing other things with Hispanic chambers and serving in government and running our businesses. But for 23 years, the Latino Coalition has advocated on what we believe are the three most important pillars for our Hispanic community, starting with the economy and economic development and how that relates to our businesses and the jobs that we need. But also issues like education and healthcare, issues that oftentimes some of our other organizations don't have time to deal with. So that was the whole purpose of the creation of the Latino Coalition by the founders 23 years ago, to have a voice, to weigh in on policy, to make sure that we're making things better for the communities that we love and that we're committed to. Economic well-being is very much in our mind, and today we're going to be hearing from some of the top leaders in government, and yes, business as well, on what we can all do together to improve the environment for our businesses. And, you know, you've probably heard me say this before, and this will be a recurring theme. We're very mindful of the fact that government by itself cannot create wealth, it cannot create jobs. It's really us, those entrepreneurs and those 4 million small businesses in the Hispanic community that are helping to create that environment. And we've seen some very, very positive signs already in the last year and a half, and we want to be part of that solution to create even more of those opportunities. And we'll do that by, again, weighing in on the policies that are front and center. Today you're going to hear from the Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, who's going to talk about infrastructure. And you're going to hear a lot more about that, not only today, but in the days to come. She's going to talk about a proposal for legislation to invest $1.5 trillion in our infrastructure in this country. And for those of us that travel a lot, and I know many of us do, we need that investment. We need better infrastructure. But it's not enough that we're going to do that, and our Latino Coalition small businesses will be advocating for that, but we need to make sure that we get our fair share of the pie. And so that's another big message for us today, and we'll have an opportunity to talk and meet with the Secretary. In a minute, you're going to hear from the Secretary of Labor. And Secretary Acosta is an old friend. We also served in the Bush administration, doing a phenomenal job. He's going to talk about a lot of different things. One of the things I hope that he'll talk a little bit about is the apprenticeship program that he's responsible for. And this is also very important because we all know there's going to be a lot of opportunities, a lot of jobs in the future. We want to make sure our folks are prepared to compete for those jobs and get those jobs. And as you know, oftentimes when you get one of those jobs, later on you create one of these small businesses. So those are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. It's going to go by fast, so fasten your seatbelts. I hope that you guys had a good breakfast. You'll need the energy. So we're going to get right into the program, and the first person that I have the pleasure of introducing is somebody that advises the President of the United States. And a lot of times, you know, when we think about that, you know, we don't know who's advising the President of the United States. Sometimes we see some of the more famous people on TV, but we don't realize that there's a lot of folks from our community that are serving in this administration. You're going to meet some of them throughout the day. And this is one of those gentlemen. His name is Carlos E. Diaz Rocio. And Carlos is a new friend of ours, but not a new friend to our Hispanic community. He's a member of President Trump's White House team. He deals with policy. He's the Director of Policy and Interagency Coordination. That's a big title, but he works out of the West Wing, and he's been there since the beginning in January of 2017. So I'm going to ask him to talk to us a little bit more about his job, how we can help him on some of the projects that he's doing. And I also told Carlos, we want to be talking to you about some of the things that are on our mind and help us navigate this. You know, government sometimes is so complex and you don't understand how all the pieces fit together. So Carlos is really right in there in the brain center. Carlos, by the way, is a Harvard man. And by the way, I see a couple of Harvard men here. Emilio Gonzalez from Verizon is here. But he has been a teacher, a lecturer, and I'm sure some of the things that he's doing right now are much, much different than when he was at Harvard. So please join me in welcoming Carlos E. Diaz Rocio. Carlos?
Thank you. I am incredibly honored and humbled by your kind invitation. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to the Latino Coalition, and thank you to its incredible chairman, Hector Barreto, for your kind invitation. I deal with a lot of policy issues, and I have been asked to give you just a few observations about a topic that I'm passionate about and that I get to deal with, the president's policy towards the Western Hemisphere. And so I'm delighted to tell you that in just over 1 year, President Trump has reasserted U.S. leadership in the region. The president is committed to strengthening historical ties with our neighbors and making the United States once again the partner of choice for the hemisphere to improve security, prosperity, and democracy for all the peoples of the Americas. And all this while making sure we're putting the interests of the American people first. As President Trump begins his second year in office, he is determined, I can tell you, to make this a great year for the Americas. And so with this in mind, I'll spend a few minutes highlighting just a few of the policy accomplishments of the administration in the Western Hemisphere. And these are accomplishments that I believe offer an important window, some insights into his positive vision for the region. And so I'll begin with what we have done with Cuba. President Trump delivered on his campaign promise to roll back the previous administration's bad deal with Cuba, one that benefited the Cuban dictatorship at the expense of the Cuban people. And as a result, we're holding the Cuban regime accountable for oppression and human rights abuses by channeling economic activities away from the Cuban military, the intelligence services, and the security services, while giving American citizens and enterprises the opportunity to do business with the small private sector in Cuba. Let's go now to Venezuela. President Trump has shown strong and resolute leadership by taking specific, concrete actions to pressure the Venezuelan dictatorship, and in the process, we have galvanized other countries around the hemisphere and around the world to respond with complementary measures. In addition to sanctioning dozens and dozens of individuals to date, the administration has prohibited U.S. dealings in new debt of Venezuela and its corrupt state-owned oil company. The president's carefully targeted actions are part of a broad, deliberate, and continuing strategy that underscores the administration's commitment to restoring democratic governance, the rule of law, and the protection of human rights for all Venezuelans. Central America. The Trump administration understands that a stable Central America contributes to a safe and prosperous United States by helping to secure our borders, protect our citizens, and increase business opportunities. Our engagement in Central America aims to strengthen democratic institutions, destroy transnational criminal organizations, combat drug and human trafficking, deter illegal migration, and increase private sector investment to create employment and economic opportunities throughout the region. At the first ever Conference on Prosperity and Security in Central America, which we co-hosted with the government of Mexico and held in Miami in June of last year, the Central American governments of the Northern Triangle agreed to work closely with us to reduce violence, to create opportunities for youth, and identify other priority areas that require more attention. They also committed to enact reforms to improve their business climates and increase transparency, which, as you know, is incredibly important for businesses. And Mexico. We're also making great progress on our efforts to modernize NAFTA to ensure that it produces better results for everyone. As these negotiations progress, I can assure you that the Trump administration is working closely with the government of Mexico on key issues that represent the breadth and the depth of our expansive and incredibly important bilateral relationship. In fact, as I speak to you, Senior Advisor to the President, Jared Kushner, is on his way to Mexico City to meet with the Mexican president and other senior administration officials to continue strengthening our ties with Mexico. Now, let me say a word about how we're promoting and working to expand economic opportunities. Throughout the Western Hemisphere, we're implementing President Trump's America First trade agenda, leveraging American economic strength to expand our exports of goods and services, and making sure that trade agreements are fair and reciprocal. Agreements that ensure that all companies can fairly compete on market-based terms and permit for reciprocal market access are not only good for the United States, but they're also good for economic growth and development throughout the region. Our relationship with Latin America and the Caribbean, as you know, encompasses a broad range of trade, investment, and government-to-government cooperation that has shaped, and I assure you will continue to shape, the development and prosperity of the hemisphere. The U.S. is one of the most important sources of investment in the region, and as you know, for many countries, the biggest trading partner. But as you know so very well, our commercial relationship with Latin America and the Caribbean is not only beneficial to the American economy at large, but is essential to an increasingly important segment within that economy, Hispanic-owned businesses. As you know, there are over 3.3 million Hispanic-owned businesses in the U.S., and they I should say you, generate approximately $500 billion in revenue. You're twice as likely to export to as other US firms, and 87% of your exports, not surprisingly, go to Latin America and the Caribbean. So given the connection between Hispanic-owned businesses and jobs for the broader Hispanic community, greater commercial engagement with Latin America provides a wonderful, untapped opportunity to help amplify the president's pro-growth message to the Latino community, a message that you will hear directly from him in just about 4 hours. The president is in a unique position as a successful business leader and as our first non-politician citizen president to communicate this critically important pro-growth, and we can always say pro-Latino growth message. Today I spoke to you about our policy towards the Western Hemisphere. But I could easily have talked to you about how committed President Trump is to keep his promises to roll back regulations, a commitment that is already spurring growth, business growth, providing economic certainty, and helping to create jobs, and more jobs. Or I could have talked to you about his successes with tax reform, or about his impressive plans for infrastructure development and investments, which you'll hear about later today, or about any of the other many exciting policy initiatives that we have in the works. But regardless of the topic, the bottom line, I would argue, is the same. President Trump is working for you and for all Americans to make sure we grow the way we're meant to grow. So in conclusion, I want to tell you that President Trump very much looks forward to traveling to Latin America very soon. I'm not going to get ahead of the president and make any announcements about when that will be, but it will be soon. And he will continue to build on our partnerships to discuss common challenges and common opportunities. The president understands very well that the region's prosperity and security directly affect American interest, including the interests of the Latino community. For that reason, he will use the next 7 years to forge ahead with his plan of renewed U.S. leadership and cooperation with the countries of the Americas as we live the economic futures of Latinos right here in this great country that we call the United States of America. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Carlos. That was great. Great way to start. Well, now it's something that I've been really looking forward to. And when we were thinking about doing this event and some of the people that we wanted to have here, this was one of the tops on my list. Now, let me ask you a question. Has anybody ever heard the word ganas? Ganas. Well, if you have a Latina mother or father, you've probably heard this word before. And so we're going to take the privilege of recognizing this very special individual, and many of you know her, Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen from Florida, from South Florida. Congresswoman has been a dear friend and advocate for us for many, many years. I remember working with her closely when I was part of the Bush administration. She was such a big supporter of what we were trying to do at the SBA. Now, for those of you that don't have a Latina mother and don't know what ganas means, it's a Mexican or Hispanic expression that means do something greater than yourself with a dedication and a will, and yes, even a grit. And I couldn't think of anybody that embodies that more than the Congresswoman. Many of you know she was the first Latina ever elected to the U.S. Congress and has served admirably for many, many years. We're going to miss her. She's been an incredible leader on many issues, foreign policy, and many, many issues. But I know that she's not going to go very far. I know that she's going to stay very committed to the things that she loves. She's a teacher at heart, and she has a lot more to do. So, Congressman, would you join me and accept this award?
Thank you. Wow. Ganas. I know what ganas means.
Yes, you do.
It's like getting an Oscar. Where's my swag bag? Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow, this is very, very nice. Thank you. I'll just say a few words here. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Muy buenos días. Felicidades a todos. Un placer y un honor estar aquí con ustedes. Hey, Robert, I know you. En esta mañana tan especial yo quisiera felicitar the Latino Coalition. Oh my gosh, this agenda. Wow. And you've got the President of the United States coming to speak today. And I think it's almost the first time that he's come to speak to a Latino organization. So what it says is that this is a group with clout. And I want to congratulate you. Many of you are in the business world. You're businessmen and businesswomen, and you've seen that when we enact economic growth policies, like we did with our tax reform package that the president promoted so well, then we're able to help employment, and that helps. That lifts all boats, including in the Latino community where the unemployment is sadly still high. Así que yo quisiera felicitar primero a todos ustedes. This Latino Coalition, this is a group that's going places. And what a wonderful lineup you have of speakers. And I love the one breakout session that you have there of Women in Business, a town hall meeting. I like it that a Latino group understands the important role of Latina business leaders in our country. So thank you for that. I am retiring after 29 years being in Congress, and it's been the greatest honor of my life. And when I was first elected, as you pointed out, I didn't even know that I was the first Hispanic woman in Congress until I did my first interview. And Katie Couric interviews me, and she says, "How does it feel to be the first Latina?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't want to correct you, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the first Latina, but I'm glad to be elected." She goes, "Oh, no, you are." No tenía idea, pero eso dice mucho, no de Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, eso dice mucho de este bello país donde todos tenemos oportunidades y tenemos, si tenemos ganas, podemos tener un éxito tremendo. Así que gracias por este tremendo honor. And I'm going to keep fighting for all the good things that Carlos was talking about in the Trump agenda when it's trying to do away with the Castro regime and the Maduro regime and bringing freedom and hope and democracy to all people of wherever they are. I chair the Middle East and North Africa subcommittee, and I see Israel as a beacon of hope in a very troubled area. And I hope that the Latino Coalition builds up good bridges with the pro-Israel community here in the United States as well. That's another good one for you to catch. Because we all need to work together. We need to build bridges and get to know one another. All parents want the same thing for their kids so that they're safe in school, so that they do well, and that we create an even better generation to come and help make their dreams come true. Así que gracias, mil gracias por este tremendo premio. Wow, really, it's the Grammys, it's the Oscars, and it's the Ganas. Muchas gracias. I'm going to grab that right now. Gracias. It is heavy.
It's just little guys, that's all.
Bueno,
Another applause for a great
bueno, muy
woman, a great
agradecida,
leader.
de verdad, muy agradecida. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you very much, Congresswoman. We're really going to miss her. She is a dynamic force and a great supporter of Latino causes, particularly a great supporter of Latin America. She has been just a dynamic leader. So big props for her, please. Well, that gives me a great honor to introduce our next speaker. And this is a gentleman that's been a great friend of the Latino Coalition, a great supporter for many, many years. He represents a company that's on the leading edge of technology and diversity, and that's Verizon's. Not only that, but he also was a former member in the Clinton administration. And we won't hold that up against you there, Emilio, but because to show you he also served this country. And as he said, he went to Harvard. How about that? A great friend, a great leader, a tremendous supporter of our organization, and we are so pleased that he can be with us here today. Emilio Gonzalez from Verizon's.
for the record, I did not include the Clinton administration item there, but good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. I wanted to share a quick story with you that happened to me as I was preparing remarks for today. One of my teenage daughters came by and said, "What are you working on?" And I told her, and she told me to remember Socrates and walked away. I asked her what that meant, and being a good teenager, she looked at me and said, Socrates was a great man. He talked too much, so they killed him. So I'll be brief. Thank you. We're a company that puts our money where our mouth is in the sense of minority and women-owned businesses. So in the last 5 years, we've done $25 billion with a B with minority and women vendors and suppliers, and that will continue forward. We're very excited about the infrastructure proposals. We're going to make some significant investments. In fact, we are in the top 3 or 4 companies in the U.S. that invest in U.S. infrastructure. And this year will be no different, or about $18 billion this year. So if you own a business and you're in the communication space, the internet space, the infrastructure space, construction, maintenance of towers, whatever it is, we're open for business and we're going to be investing in the U.S. Finally, it's not why I'm here. I'm here because I want to take a moment as somebody who's been around this coalition for a very long time to tell you about Hector Barreto, a man who I have the privilege of calling a friend. You see, things weren't always this impressive. In fact, 10, 12 years ago, things hit a rough time. Sponsors went away, crowds weren't there, kind of lonely. And in walks this man who has some history in this space and begins to roll up his sleeves and visit with every single sponsor, every single member, and reconstruct and rebrand and rebuild. And so when you talk about ganas, I think this man embodies it, and he does it with some of the most important traits I think any business leader can have: integrity, vision, and dedication. So I want to give a big thank you to Hector Barreto. As long as we're here, we will be here with him. And I want to thank all of you as sponsors and supporters of the coalition for coming out. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, all right. I thought with that music everybody would be dancing, but ¿qué pasó? No, sorry, I just had to go in there and have the honor of have a picture taken with Secretary Acosta. He will be with us in a second. His staff is going to be bringing him in. But while we're waiting, I want to thank all our partner organizations that are with us here today, who are co-hosts of this great event. And I hope I don't miss anybody. If I do, I'll make it up during the day. But we have with us the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, also the Kansas City Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. All right, KC, you traded Alex Smith. What was that all about? Okay, Mid-Atlantic Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Jorge, thank you for being here. Jose Nino. Virginia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. The Greater Washington Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. TAMAC, the big guys from Texas, y'all. And we also have the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Julian Canete is here. Revolution. Ibero American Business Council. And we also have the Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce, and we have the Colombian American Chamber of Commerce, Julian Hoyos. So as you can see, we have a lot of great partners that are co-hosting this event. So we're really proud that they were able to support us and bring a lot to this conference. And please network with them because they got a lot of activities in their area. So without further ado, what I'd like to do now is call up our chairman again, Hector Barreto.
Gracias, Manny. We told you the hits were going to keep coming, and our next speaker, we're, again, very happy and excited to have him. Of course, he's the Labor Secretary, Alex Acosta, the only Latino in the cabinet, but let's give him a round of applause. I had the privilege of serving in the George W. Bush administration at the same time that Alex Acosta was in the administration. I had a number of different roles there, Justice Department, NLRB, and many others. Secretary Acosta is the son of Cuban refugees. He's a native of Miami and a first-generation college graduate. And a lot of us who are also first-generation college graduates know how that important it is to our family legacy. But Secretary Acosta didn't stop there. He went on to earn his undergraduate and law degrees from Harvard University. By the way, I think this is a theme, Secretary. We had Carlos Rosillo, was also a Harvard man, and we have a number of Harvard men here. By the way, he has been named one of the nation's 50 most influential Hispanics by Hispanic Business Magazine, and I have a feeling that he's going to make those lists again this year. He's working on a lot of important things and we were just talking a little bit ago, and I'm not going to steal his thunder, but he's working on some things that are critically important to our community and especially to our small businesses. So please join me in a warm Latino Coalition welcome for the Secretary of Labor, Alex Acosta.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's get that out of the way. So thank you for the introduction, and it's great to be here with you. Earlier this week, I saw a tweet from Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, and it was pretty straightforward. It simply said this: jobless claims at a 49-year low, check. Disposable income up, check. Consumer confidence at an 18-year high, check. Small business confidence at an all-time high, check. And so the statistics leave no doubt. President Trump is delivering on his commitment to create jobs, and even more jobs for the American people. And so it's an optimistic and exciting time for our nation. The American economy is growing, and this renewed prosperity is improving the lives of all Americans, and particularly Hispanic Americans, whose entrepreneurial spirit is evidenced by the amazing growth of Hispanic-owned businesses in our nation. And I want to offer a particular acknowledgement as I look around the room. I see a number of women. Hispanic women are the fastest growing group of small business owners across all demographics. And so your small businesses are creating economic growth that improves the lives of Hispanic Americans around the nation. So thank you. Now, this growth makes an immediate impact, and it is felt today. And it's going to be felt throughout this year, and it'll be felt throughout this presidency. You know this, and so I don't need to spell it out further. Today, I want to spend my time talking with you about an issue that matters not just today and not just throughout this presidency. I want to talk to you about something that matters throughout your lifetime and the lifetime of your children and their children. My friend Meyer Diaz-Balart often points out that the Cuban Constitution looks similar to the US Constitution on paper. Article 53 of the Cuban Constitution guarantees Cuban citizens freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Article 8 guarantees freedom of religion, and Article 54 guarantees freedom of assembly. But all of us in this room know that in Cuba, those constitutional guarantees are mere words. They are not guarantees. So America differs from Cuba in fundamental respects. We have a government of limited power. We respect the rule of law. We proceed from the assumption that Americans should be trusted to exercise individual choice and freedom of contract unless a lawmaking body says otherwise. One of the cornerstones of our Constitution is that the executive branch does not have boundless power. The Constitution, which we're oath-bound to defend, requires that those of us in the executive branch, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed. And that means that the executive branch is bound by the laws Congress passes, and that it may regulate only where Congress has granted authority. So the executive branch doesn't have plenary authority to regulate. It doesn't have plenary authority to, quote, channel the efforts of the nation. It doesn't have plenary authority to, quote, direct the national economy. And those quotes are very important because those quotes are from the Cuban Constitution. See, in Cuba, the national government has those plenary authorities. It has a presumption of control. In America, the presumption is liberty. So how do we guarantee that we maintain this presumption of liberty and of freedom? And the answer is respect for separation of powers and respect for the rule of law. We in America believe that the law sets limits on government. We believe that government cannot simply do whatever it wants. And that principle is why many of us are here, why many of our parents came here. And it's a principle that matters to people in this room because you've seen firsthand through your families or friends of your families what happens when governments disregard the principle of limited government. And I understand why it's tempting to do so. Because all of us, when we see injustice, all of us, when we see wrong, have a very human temptation to find the quickest solution. But in government, it's our job to do what the Constitution requires, which is to faithfully execute the laws, even if it means allowing the process to run a little bit longer to find the right solution. And so I want to talk about this in the context of a matter that we're grappling with at the Department of Labor, not because it's one of the most significant matters facing our nation, although it is certainly important, but because I want to talk about how government officials grapple with this issue on an everyday basis. The matter concerns something you're all familiar with, tips that are provided to waiters and waitresses. The law prohibits restaurants and establishments that apply tips toward minimum wage from requiring waitstaff to share those tips with the dishwashers and cooks and those in the back of the house. That is what Congress has determined. If an establishment applies tips toward the minimum wage laws, the tips may not be pooled with the back of the house. The law says nothing at all with respect to what restaurants may do if they do not credit those tips toward minimum wage. The law is silent. Congress has not spoken. And so the issue is this. When the law is silent, do we in government have plenary authority to regulate? In 2011, the previous administration issued a regulation that did just that. It prohibited all restaurants, and not just those that applied tips toward minimum wage, from enacting agreements to share a tip between the front of the house and the back of the house. Now, this was challenged in court, and one federal court of appeals has since ruled that the 2011 regulation was issued without statutory authority. It said if Congress is silent, the department doesn't have the authority to regulate. Another court of appeals, the Ninth Circuit in California, disagreed and found that, quote, even though the statute is silent regarding the tip pooling practices of employers who do not take a tip credit, the department still had the authority to regulate. And so here we see the disagreement and the tension. Two courts of appeals. Congress has said nothing. How broad is the government authority to regulate? Now, personally, I find the decision that favors limited government persuasive. When Congress is silent, the executive does not have the power to write the law. So here is the issue. Without this regulation, some think that restaurants will keep tips. Let me be clear. No one whom I know wants an establishment to keep the tips that are paid to hardworking men and women. No one. It is wrong. It is reprehensible. And unfortunately, we're living in an era where some misrepresent views on this matter. So let me be very clear. It is wrong. This administration does not favor establishments keeping tips. And in my opinion, very few establishments would do so. They didn't do so before 2011. And in this era of social media, they're much less likely to do so because everyone would know and no one would want to work there. And they would lose their customers, starting with myself. But here is the question. How do we address this issue? Do we write a rule to address this irrespective of our views on statutory authority? Or do we ask Congress to fix this by passing a law? And this is a question that we see on so many issues. My view is in the United States, we must ensure that we remain a nation of laws. And even on issues where there is near universal agreement on what the outcome should be, the process matters, because at the end of the day, what makes our nation great is separation of powers and the constitutional process that our founders envisioned. And that is why, in this case, for example, I've asked Congress to address this matter through legislation. A simple statement in law would effectively address the concern that some establishments may keep tips. But right now, the law does not say that. And therefore, it is not our place in the executive branch to regulate what the law does not say. So why am I speaking with you about this? I'm speaking with you about this because I know that Hispanic Americans understand the importance of preserving the constitutional principles that protect our freedom. Many in this room or their families came from nations that failed to do so. You just honored one individual that came from one such nation. You know that beyond the policy issues of today lie the freedom-embracing constitutional principles that will matter most, not just today, but to your children and to your children's children. And so as you interact with our government in this legislative summit, I ask that you let those principles guide you. You know, during my time in government, I've made it a point to reach out to members of all parties. There's one instance where I was speaking with a member of Congress. The member had a constituent concern. And I told the member I shared the concern. I thought what was happening to the constituent was just wrong. But I was constrained by the law from solving the problem. And so the member told me, and this is a pretty close quote, I hope you can just use your executive power to fix the problem. And we can talk about the law later. That view is contrary to the American tradition as I see it. And that distinction in how we in Washington and several folks in Washington view the role of government, I believe goes to the heart of who we are and what we are. And it's not just an academic distinction. It is important. And so I'm glad that the president will be here with you later today to share his vision. He's offering great opportunities to all Americans. And I wanted to close by sharing one of those opportunities from a personal perspective. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to attend the State of the Union. And I walked into Congress, and I had the privilege of sitting in the second row. And it struck me. My parents came here as refugees. They pretty much had nothing on them. They met in high school, they married young, and they went right to work. College was not a possibility for them. And here I am, sitting in the second row of the House of Representatives as the President of the United States delivers the State of the Union. That story is not about me. That story is about you and your children. That story is replicated in different ways, thousands and thousands of times across America. That is a story of opportunity and freedom and merit. And that's what makes this nation unique. And that's what makes this nation great. And that is why we should believe in our hearts that this nation is great and that this nation is special. And that is something we need to protect. And that is why I chose today to speak to you about the Constitution, because we must protect the freedom-embracing constitutional principles of limited government. And I know that you in this room truly understand that. Thank you very much. Oh, gladly.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a little break up. We'll ask you to stay seated. We will continue shortly, and we remind you that we're going to be trying to keep our program as tight as possible. We have a lot to cover, but in about 3 more minutes, we will come back and we'll continue with the program. So just stand by. Please don't leave. We'll continue shortly. Thank you.